Today we're very fortunate to have Robert Jeffries Schott, the President and CEO of AIRSCHOTT, which we call him Bob. And AIRSCHOTT also has a division called Schott. He's also the President of All Cargo Expediting Services. Bob has been in business at Dulles International Airport since 1977. I do anything wrong, tell me. Okay. And he opened at BWI Airport operations in 1983. The company specializes in customs brokerage, freight forwarding, and foreign trade zone operation. The companies are licensed brokers. They're licensed insurance brokers for property and casualty in the state of Maryland, independent ocean transport, Federal Maritime Commission licensed, and federal registered exporter for the U.S. Department of State. What makes Bob so interesting is all his associations and community. He's with the Air Forwarders Association of America, the American Association of Exporters and Importers, British American Business Association. He was a board member up until 2013. International Trade Association of Northern Virginia, past president and board member. National Custom Brokers and Forwarders Association of America, United Nations Association board member, Washington Air Cargo Association, past president on the Board of Governors, Washington's Custom Broker and Forwarders Association, Washington International Trade Association founding board member, and he is a Rotarian since 1980, past Rotarian of the Dulles Rotary, correct? That's correct. And he's a former member of the Board of Directors and the Director Emeritus of Committee for Dulles. He is well known in the speaking circuit. He's a speaker on behalf of the State of Maryland Office of International Trade on topics of export documentation and foreign trade zones. He lectures at Georgetown University on business topic of international trade documentation, a lecturer at George Mason University, Arlington campus, an instructor at Montgomery College, a speaker at the World Trade Institute of Baltimore, and he's published many textbooks involved with foreign trade zone and international trade, transportation and distribution. I want to know about what you've invented, so I'm going to be one of the questions I was going to ask, if I may. And his education is rather interesting. He attended the University of Florida in Gainesville and the University of Madrid, Spain, and the University of Maryland at College Park. He is married, has 5 children and 9 grandchildren. And he loves sailing, riding, and tennis, and please welcome Bob Schott.
Who was that person?
I don't know. I'm going to slide back to you because I up.
So, I have a couple of notes to remind me that my intention today was really to pull out some of the highlights of. I've actually been on Dulles Airport, working on Dulles Airport for 50 years. So 73, I started with Samuel Shapiro Company. They rented a desk for me out in Wall Shipping Company's warehouse, and in the wintertime, I typed on my manual typewriter with gloves on. And in the summertime, I couldn't get enough clothes on because I had the door in the warehouse. But I've been on the Committee for Dulles since the early 80s. Hal Launders got me into Committee for Dulles and the Dulles Rotary Club around about the same time. And Hal was absolutely a great human being. And served with the Committee for Dulles, urging the completion of the Silver Line to Dulles Airport. And in late February, I hopped on the metro at Shady Grove Station, rode to Dulles, caught my plane to Frankfurt, spent 3 weeks in Europe, flew back with Icelandic Air into Dulles and took the metro home. It was quite convenient, but it's too damn long. I must say that the trip from here into the city, on the access road, cars were passing us. That's not supposed to happen with a train. The train's supposed to be going faster than the cars. But anyway, it was a bit disappointing. It was a couple-hour trip to to Shady Grove, stop over at the Metro Center. But I'm glad it's here. Really glad it's here. So, I started here on Dulles, so I worked for another company for 4 years, started my own in '77. So that company is going to be 46 years old this year. And I had a partner in crime out here, a Belgian sheepdog Irish setter cross named Falstaff. And Falstaff was indeed the source of joy amongst the merry wives of Windsor in the dog world. Falstaff, in those days, there was so little traffic at Dulles Airport. Air Force One would do touch and goes out here, and you could watch. And the dog was not a problem for anybody. Anyway, there was no traffic. I did, however, I used to put my badge on the dog's collar just in case. And sure enough, one day I get a call from the police station, and the police station had been right at the north end of the airport building. And they call me back in there, and here's Falstaff sitting with his butt up on the bench in the lockup, and his front feet on the floor, just wagging his tongue, wondering why he got busted. But he's
Did they read him his rights?
I hope so. Anyway,
Made the right call.
they did. So that was it was an interesting place to work at the time. Very, very different than today. Customs. So in those days, the customs broker's job was, in fact, to go into the warehouse, into the cargo warehouses, open up freight, and then get customs to come out and look at it. It was a very interesting place to work. There was one customs broker in our industry, in this world, who held a poker game every day at lunchtime with all the customs officers. And if you needed a customs officer, you had to go into the poker game and break it up. And hopefully the officer whose duty it was, whose time it was to go do some work, was not winning at the time. Yeah. Interrupted. It was quite something. Poker at lunchtime. So my father built cargo building number 3 at some point. And at that point, this airport was pretty lax. Not much going on. He filled up most of cargo building number 3 with with kitchen units from Gulf Reston. So they were storing those kitchen units stacked to the ceiling in these warehouses, taking up most of cargo building 3. Fortunately, Gulf Reston ended up putting their kitchen units in place, and my father ended up renting out most of building number 3, all of building number 3, and ended up building cargo building number 4, which is where we are now. There's now a cargo building number 5 just north of there as well. Let me just grab it. So the Concorde. Concorde started flying from Dulles, and we put a little package on the first Concorde to fly out of Dulles. It was a 1-pound package. My mother was head of the Seroptimus Association in Washington, and she sent an envelope to the Seroptimus International President, who was in England. So we got some freight on the first Concorde. Other fun stuff. Number 4. We were talking earlier about the exchange of the Piper Seneca with the Malibu. So my father was an active pilot. He was an Air Force pilot from the class of 42 in Texas, and flew for the Air Force throughout his career. At some point, the Air Force said, "Well, gee, you're kind of long in the tooth to be flying for us." And my father said, "Well, it must be time to retire," and he did. retired and he kept his planes. He had a twin engine Piper Seneca that he kept here, and we used to come out to the airport. Didn't have gates or anything. We would just drive out to his airplane, park the car under the wing, taxi out, and take off to Florida. He traded that Seneca in on a Malibu, which is a pretty high performance propeller aircraft, pressurized, high altitude, long range. And he was coming back from Florida in the Seneca with the ferry pilot who was taking it back to the purchaser, and one of my cousins, who was a child of one of my cousins, in the plane with him. And he's getting close to being on final. Well, I guess he wasn't. He was still cruising, but my nephew was in his lap, my cousin was in his lap, and he noticed that the oil pressure on one of the engines plummeted. So my little cousin ended up in the back seat very quickly, and my father and the ferry pilot got the plane down. They phoned the runway here at Dallas, and we landed safely. I think they may have been over Richmond when that engine first went out, but they got here. Anyway, it was an exciting day for all to phone the runway for a little Seneca. Other stuff that I've done here is I set up a foreign trade zone. So I actually had the idea, thought that Dulles needed a foreign trade zone, went to, what do they call it, WTF? Oh yeah.
WTF, you got it.
Was the grantee organization, and got the task force involved in setting up a foreign trade zone. We were at one time the most active on-airport foreign trade zone in the country. All for storage of goods coming in and out, and it was pretty active. The zone currently has, I think, 2 users.
2 users.
One is a general purpose zone off the airport. The other is a company that does product.
Is that Fortessa?
Fortessa.
Oh, Fortessa.
They are participating in the trade.
Dinner.
Yes.
Yes, a great place.
So the foreign trade zone is still going, 137. I'm very pleased. Bugschaft. So one of the products that my company's been involved in, we are customs brokers and freight brokers. And so one of the products that we've been involved in has been vegetables, fresh vegetables that come in from primarily from Europe, but also from South and Central America. And our Department of Agriculture is very careful about looking those shipments over and making sure there are no invasive bugs that may not already be entrenched in the United States. So when they find a bug, one of 2 things has to happen. When they find an offense, a bug that they are worried about, one of 2 things has to happen. It either has to be destroyed, or it has to be fumigated in a proper fumigation chamber. And I saw this very interesting thing happen. Bugs would be found in airlines on pallets of fresh produce, and they would bring a truck. The truck would back up to the loading dock. They'd load these packages on the truck, these pallets. The truck would head down the highway to Springfield, where there was a fumigation chamber or something in Springfield. And they would take the pallets off the truck, put them in the fumigation chamber, gas the veggies, put them back on the truck, and bring them out to Dulles. I can only imagine the bugs that bounce off the fruit on the truck, and then when it gets put back on the truck, damn, it's back again. So I thought, how can we fix that? And I came up with an idea of making that fumigation chamber mobile and temperature controlled, because when you have a box sitting out in the sun in July in this area, and it gets to be 110 degrees inside the box, that's not so good for the veggies. So we had I developed invented, patented, and put into service here at Dulles a temperature-controlled fumigation chamber, mobile fumigation chamber, that we would back up to the loading dock, load the pallets on it, pull it away from the loading dock 50 feet, turn on the gas, methyl bromide, capture the methyl bromide in activated charcoal, back it back up to the loading dock, unload those pallets, and no happy bugs. Anyway, it worked very well. That particular market hasn't been so active, and what they've discovered overseas is if we fumigate these vegetables before they get to the States, we can do it for a lot less than what they charge when they have it to the States. So that market has gone down. The chamber still exists.
They bring it back in, do they rinse it off, or we just go to the store and everything we're buying has been fumigated?
Methyl bromide is a gas that doesn't stick to anything.
No?
Yeah. It's completely exhausting.
You still got to wash it off.
Oh, yeah, you do, but not because of the methyl bromide.
Okay.
So you're saying we import vegetables from Europe? Is that what you said?
Yeah, flying tomatoes.
I always thought it was California and that we ship out. You're
Fumigate
saying
those too.
Yeah.
I didn't realize Europe supplied us with vegetables. That's interesting. What kind is it?
Peppers, tomatoes, tangerines. I've seen a lot of small fruit.
What part of Europe? Like southern Spain or?
Italy.
Oh, Italian tomatoes for your pizza, yeah.
Has been coming from the Netherlands, but the Netherlands gathers it.
What's that?
Sure.
Pizza invented in New York.
Well, tomatoes come from the Americas. The Indians had it, right? The Italians just did it better. So now we got to bring it right back.
Oh,
Is that a plug?
Uh-huh.
Do we
The
export
Italians in New
fruit
York.
at all?
Yeah.
Certainly not by air that I know. We really don't export produce much. We consume it most of it. Seafood, on the other hand, we have a big market in exporting seafood.
Do we fumigate that?
Okay. You boil
Just
it.
checking.
Do they still
Boil
ship
it.
out those
It's those lobsters.
There used to be 2 great big containers every day of eels or every week of eels that went out to the water. There were live eels in this huge, typical, looked like an LD3 kind of container. And there were live eels that were, with water in it. And there were live eels that shipped over to France every week. People eat them. Oh yeah, they love them over there.
Well, big in sushi. Eel.
Yeah, if you like, I can cook mine.
So,
Spread it if I can.
a few interesting shipments that we handled. Well, I'll tell you, I actually didn't write it down, but I remembered that. We had a client who was importing caviar. And they were importing a lot of caviar. In fact, they set up a kitchen right below where we are to take the caviar out of big cans like that and put it in a little single service for first class use in the airline business. And I've still got the canning equipment downstairs. They were saying that the caviar was from Iran, not Russia.
Yeah.
Russia had a high duty rate. They were claiming its provenance to be something else. So they did a DNA test on the caviar. Fish and Wildlife did. And Fish and Wildlife said, "Oh, gee, you're calling this Osetra, but it's beluga," something like that. And they went to jail. And I had about a ton of caviar in a cooler downstairs that the prosecutor would not let me sell. So I took quite a bath for those certain things. We built this kitchen for them, and they went to jail. But interestingly, they went to jail not because they were misclassifying European or Russian caviar, Asian caviar, but because they actually were going after a Mississippi mudfish that produces a roe that is tastes very like caviar. And the Mississippi mudfish is an endangered species. And these guys went to jail for harvesting and trafficking in endangered species out of the Mississippi River. And anyway, yeah, they and the caviar all went to a dump.
Oh.
Should have sent it to my house.
They wouldn't let you
What a
consume
waste.
it or whatever.
They-
Give it away.
They made me put a seal on it
Oh.
Where did he go?
to a fossil landfill.
Oh my God.
Gosh, what year was that?
There's fish in the landfill now.
So quite a while ago.
Yeah.
I would say probably 2000-ish. Easily 20 years ago. Anyway, so that was other strange shipments that we've gotten involved in. A company came to us with from West Virginia. They had coal. They were shipping samples of coal to India for analysis, and they shipped 3. Air freighting coal just blows my mind to imagine it. We did. We shipped, I think, a couple of tons each of coal, West Virginia coal, and they said they were marketing it 3 different ways. One was on price, one was they were bribing somebody, and one was something. In any case, the guys they ended up going out of business, going bust.
Can I ask a question? I don't know if it's going to be part of your presentation, but can you explain how you ship,
Sure.
how you actually ship things, how it comes in, and is that part of your?
Sure.
Yeah.
Let me get to that.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
that's fine.
I wanted to, so, strange shipments, a mortar launcher. So one of our clients imported a mortar launcher on wheels.
Mortar.
Mortar. Not what you put between bricks.
Yeah.
Weapon.
Yes, big weapon. And they had to get it back to, it came from Hungary. And they had to get it back to Hungary after that. They brought it to us, and it had to stop in Italy, and licensing and permitting and all that other stuff. It took a long time. It sat in my warehouse. So if you can imagine a wheeled mortar launching device with a barrel sitting facing the runway out our back door. And that was, yeah, we had to explain that a couple of times. We loaded up an aircraft out back here with ammo going to Bogota, to Colombia. And it wasn't long after that, the ammo manufacturer in West Virginia came down and they loaded up the Colombian Air Force plane here. I'm sure I saw Keith missed this one. The Rotary Club, the Dulles Airport Rotary Club. There was a fellow named Julian Patterson.
Yeah, Julian.
Yeah, he's in Florida now.
Yeah. So Julian had gone to Colombia and visited Rotary clubs and visited some orphanages in Colombia, and he came back and he got us all excited about providing some Christmas presents, toys, and that sort of thing for these kids in Colombia. And we thought that's a great idea. So Bill Green, the then Airport Director of Customs here in Dulles, my father, I don't know if Julian Patterson was part of the crowd, but a bunch of us got here in the warehouse and started stacking these toys and clothes that we had gotten, ready to go to Colombia. Well, one of the girls who worked on me at the time walks through the warehouse and says, "Why don't you send those trousers that have been abandoned here and sitting here for the last 5 years? Why don't we send those? They're kid sizes." They were made for, I think, a fashion market in France, but they were camo. They were camo pattern. So, in addition to that, we had some leftover chili cook-off T-shirts. You're not old enough to remember chili cook-off.
I heard about the chili cook-off.
The Dulles Rotary Club held chili cook-offs. We must have done it 4 or 5 years in a row over here at the Marriott. And people brought their chili and cooked their own. We cooked the chili up the thing. Prizes were given. And, a lot of fun happened. So we had T-shirts made up, and they had a circular was basically a blast, right? And it said, it was chili blast off, was the slogan. So we threw some of those in there too. And some poor Rotarians in Bogota, Colombia, went out to pick up these gifts for the orphanage kids. And the police had been through the shipment before and determined that these black T-shirts with blast on the front and these camo-colored pants were meant for the FARC in Colombia. And they greeted these guys with submachine guns drawn. My company, being the shipper of that ship, it was banned from doing business here.
Wow.
So was that in the 90s?
You know, years has gone by so fast. It's
I know. Just remember reading about those guys in
Teamwork.
Colombia.
Very good.
Yeah.
Very well. So 9/11 happened, and this airport was shut down for a couple of weeks. Airports all around the country were shut down. I had such a fantastic staff. They came to me and said, "Boss, we don't really want to go home. What can we do? Can we paint the office? Can we clean it up? Can we do some stuff here?" I said, "Great. Bought paint, bought brushes, bought rollers, bought tape." And one lady that we had recently hired comes to me and says, I didn't sign up to do this kind of work. I said, "Okay, well, I'll tell you what, you go ahead home, and when we have some work for you to do, I'll call you." I presume she's still waiting. But what 9/11 gave us was the need for a disaster plan. And after 9/11, we outfitted every one of our staff members with a laptop instead of a desktop computer. And if you take your laptop home with you, and if you've got a cold, if you've got the sniffles, if you've got COVID, you stay at home. And we didn't anticipate COVID. We anticipated another terrorist attack or some other event that would make us bad weather. Right? And so in 2002, we instigated this disaster plan, giving all of our staff members laptop computers. So we're now 32 staff members. This office used to have about 14 people in it at a time. Now 4. And 32 people, we are in Florida, Michigan, South Carolina, Georgia, New Hampshire, Maryland, and Virginia. And what we found was after 2020, people did not want to go back into an office to work. And as employers started to tell their staff members, "Okay, we're coming back into the office, get ready." And they would see our advertisement out there saying, "Work from home." We're good with that. And it's been great for us. We have gotten absolutely fantastic talent who just liked working from home. I've been working from home for over 20 years. And I haven't been in this office. Well, yeah, I mean, I've stopped in once or twice briefly in the last 6 months. But most of the time I park my car out front and walk over to the airport and fly away. Anyway, it's the way of the world now. One of the other things that's happened, and this will get to your question, one of the other things that's happened in our industry is that all the government agencies have gotten online. So when I do a customs clearance now, I don't have to send documents to the Food and Drug Administration, documents to the Department of Transportation. It's all electronic, it's all online, it's all part of the entry process. It also means that my people can sit here, or in Florida, or in South Carolina, or in Michigan, and clear shipments in Los Angeles, Houston, the Canadian border. And all we need to do is press the buttons properly. I I used to say that what we do is push paper that makes freight move. We don't do that anymore. We push the buttons that makes freight move. And yes, we coordinate transport either from origin to destination, and that may mean transport within a foreign country. It may mean transport within the United States. It could go by rail, it could go by truck, could go by barge. But that always as a prior to or subsequent to an international route is what that's our nation. That's what we do.
So let me just ask: did you or your company develop the software that you currently use, or is it from a company and it's in the cloud? So all the people that are all over the country, if something happens to their PCs, they still have access to it.
Correct. So when I first started out, we actually wrote our own software in DOS. That became obsolete. We then went to a third-party vendor, and we were with that company for, I think, 20 years. And they were not moving ahead. We saw that the electronic world was moving ahead, and they weren't.
Right.
And so we, back in 2012, started looking for somebody else. And we came up with an outfit that, in fact, is so caught on. They are the most popular, most commonly used platform in the world. And they are an Australian company, but they've written their software for Chinese companies, for European companies, for American companies. And it's really a nice piece of it enables us in a work from home environment to keep track of what our staff are doing. I mean, we can count the number of keystrokes, how much time they spend on the computer, and we also, working from home, we have limits on how long they can stay away from the computer without touching it.
I would love that.
Yeah. So it's done.
A little hint. Commonwealth of Virginia developed a work from home module for the state employees long ago. And their contract with their employees was in free domain. And so I did the most complimentary thing I could do. I plagiarized it. And we took the Commonwealth of Virginia's contract with employees, and our employees signed something similar.
So do you have employees or contracts with people in the other countries that you work with to coordinate all of this?
Yes, it really is quite critical to have, in my industry, to have partners, to have agents, to have folks that we deal with, and sometimes we pitch and they catch, sometimes they pitch and we catch.
Oh, you mean they would initiate an order and then call you and say, can you handle the rest of this?
Something like that. I mean, they'll send us an email and say we've got 5,000 kilos of widgets that are boxed in 1 meter by 1 meter by 1 meter cartons, 12 of them. How much is it going to cost to get that from Dulles to Fairfax?
So, with the Port of Long Beach being so busy, are you moving to other ports?
The Port of Long Beach, times change. Port of Long Beach is suffering right now.
Really?
From a lack of business. They are down 40% year on year, and it's plummeting every month, the amount of traffic that's coming into Long Beach.
Is that because of the whole COVID?
Business is down worldwide. China is down China-wide. And yeah, trade is off. European trade is still okay, but the Asian trade is, and so Los Angeles being an Asian-centered port of entry. And a lot of people, when LA and Long Beach were jammed up, people were looking for alternatives. And they found
Seattle,
right? Well, Seattle's one, Vancouver was one. And it's important Oh, there's another Canadian port further up that's also been very, but even more, the Panama Canal's been widened. Big ships can get through to the East Coast, and those big ships are taking their cargo to the East Coast and the Gulf Coast.
Was it Long Beach where they talked about ships waiting out for weeks?
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
right.
Is that where it was?
Well, it was Long Beach. It was also
The whole West Coast?
yeah, much of the West Coast, but Savannah suffered from that as well. Savannah had ships waiting. But all
Well, you
that's-
could see in the Chesapeake,
Yeah.
you know, like when you go over the bridge, you'd see ships lined up.
They're parallel parking.
Parallel park, right?
Can you give an example of what a typical business transaction for your company?
That's a good question. I was gonna ask something similar.
On the import side, let's see, let me get this on the import side,
Because I'm not sure I understand what a customs broker is.
so our clients are importers. On the customs brokerage side, our clients are importers. Think Walmart, think Beretta, Glock. These companies import from overseas. They have either our agent or their agent overseas sends us what we call a pre-alert. And that pre-alert is electronic. It used to come paper, then it was fax. Now it's an e-message. And all the documents are imaged. So the image documents that we then open up and and what we do is feed into a computer the details about that shipment, that customs needs, that food and drug need, that Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms needs, whatever government agencies regulate that product, we transmit to that agency the data about that product in a message format that they get. And then those government agencies respond by sending us a message that, okay, the cargo is released. The airlines and the steamship lines also get that message. Cargo is released. And when that's done, we then send a trucker in to pick it up at the pier at the airline, and the cargo then gets delivered.
And does it typically go straight to a distribution facility, or does it go here first so that somebody can come inspect it? Or
No. We try and focus on the least number of times a piece of freight gets handled. And so we try and send it right from the carrier to the.
so in the case of Glock ships over a pallet of 9mm handguns. You've gotten clearance from ATF that it's okay based on a bill of lading or whatever.
Based on our transmission.
Okay.
And if they find exceptions to our transmission, or just wild card they choose it for exam, they physically go and examine it.
Okay. But once it gets here via either airliner or ship,
Right.
you guys coordinate the transportation, pick it up, and deliver it to a retailer
Oh,
or?
no, to their premises in Georgia. They're in New Smyrna, Georgia.
Okay, so in Glock's case, they have a U.S.
Smyrna, Georgia.
Well, yeah, because my question, similar question in the sense, like, what's the chain of custody with a physical product being moved? So whether you want to use the gun example or whatever, so there's a factory in Europe that makes it. Who's touching that product to getting it to point A to point B to point C, you know, and then it ends up in its final destination? Whose hands are literally, or machines are literally touching it to get it to where it needs to go, or literally opening something up and inspecting it, or?
Yeah, so it depends, but typically the manufacturer will have a freight forwarder and or a trucking company.
Right.
That typically comes to their door, picks the freight up, takes it to the carrier.
So they're really driving it to the airport in Europe,
Exactly.
in your case. And does somebody inspect it in the Europe side, or everything's good and there's no inspection until it gets here?
No, generally no inspection.
So they bring it to the airport personnel load it up on a plane, off it goes.
These days what happens is it's palletized.
Right.
So you get these airplane-friendly pallets stacked up in the cargo. Those good. They have machinery at the airports that that moves that.
Right.
It scans it too, doesn't it?
No. Oh, yeah. Typically not, unless so. We have in the United States an idea of known shippers, not known shippers.
We have known travelers and not known travelers too here.
Exactly. And the cargo going out from the United, and Europe has the same, has a similar thing. They just call it by a different name, where the shippers are recognized and registered in Europe, and as are the truckers and the carriers, and the cargo moves between folks who are cleared to move that cargo.
Okay.
And if that chain breaks, then the cargo gets X-rayed or opened up and looked at.
Okay, so there's trusted people that flows through that. It gets on the plane. So when it literally lands here on the runway, what happens to it?
The plane taxis to a parking spot.
Right.
Equipment comes to open their loading machines.
Airline equipment,
Airline equipment.
Employees, United Airlines, whatever.
Yep. And well, they're ground handling companies that do that work for the airlines. And they go out to the aircraft and they take the pallets off and they put them on dollies that they pull along like a little train from the aircraft to the warehouses over there. And then those pallets are stripped down, the cartons are segregated and put on shelves for people to come.
So is there a sorting facility before it gets to you, or they just see a tag and they say, oh, this goes to him, and they just push it over to you?
The boxes have labels on it, lock labels on it. But the boxes have these labels on them that tell what the airway bill number is, what the destination is, what the airline is, those kinds of things. And they're sorted by that.
Right. So that's something for you, it comes to you? I mean, is everything that you guys are handling going into your warehouse, or does a lot of your stuff bypass your warehouse and you only take it for
this is an
exception?
electronic world. So they've got a manifest that shows what they receive. We key the data into the government agencies. The government agencies send a message to the carrier, this item on your manifest is released. And then somebody has to come in.
And you never go in and actually look at it, because there's pictures that are sent to you electronically, right?
Yeah, not if I don't have to.
Right, and so that's the look at it. It's like something where it's like agency, just someone comes in and just suspects something nefarious, and they'll go in there and check on it, but it's not often.
Correct.
Yeah.
Are you coordinating the transportation once it gets to the U.S. to the New Smyrna warehouse?
So in reality, what happens with my company is we sometimes handle a piece of the transaction. Sometimes we handle the entire transaction from door to door. And it just depends, including insurance and transport. So yeah, it just depends on what we need.
But it sounds like there's a lot of product you never touch. If something's unusual, if you have to take possession of it, it comes off the plane, a third-party shipping company here picks it up and then takes it to its final destination, and you never touch it. It never enters your warehouse most of the time.
Generally not.
Yeah.
I mean, we have some shipments that come through the warehouse out of necessity.
Right. Caviar, but.
Yeah. So if shipping is down, can you envision a time when you won't have to have human intervention for this process to work from country to country?
I hope not.
Right.
Kill his business.
Well, I mean,
Well then, Marcia, go ahead. You've been having your hand up for
Well,
last half
I'm
hour.
curious about the cost, because now that reports of excess time, have the costs gone down? Because they were outrageous for a while.
They will. So a 40-foot container from China to Long Beach for a period of time was north of $30,000. It's now down. I've seen rates being offered under $1,000.
Wow.
But I've noticed that, yeah,
In what span of time?
A year.
Wow.
but they were charging extra costs on your bill. And they're still charging extra costs on their bill.
I'm not sure what you mean.
What bill?
Like
From
FedEx.
a consumer's perspective,
Yeah.
you say
for
consumers
like
are still seeing
Yeah.
higher prices.
It hadn't floated.
I guess what yeah. So
Like the fuel surcharge.
yeah.
Right. You probably will still see it, but that's for trucking. Steamship lines do have they do have a bunker surcharge that they add on from time to time, but that's a very small piece of it.
Another question.
Go ahead.
Okay. So a lot of times there's cargo that's not claimed.
Here we go.
Yeah.
Well,
What happens to that and who gets it?
We're here to claim it.
Yeah, really.
good. Couple of things happen. From customs point of view, if cargo is not claimed at the airline or steamship line, within 15 days, it is considered abandoned, and they move it to a contractor warehouse called the General Order Warehouse. And that's what it is, General Order. And the carrier usually applies a lien against that shipper, which has to be satisfied before the GO warehouse can release it.
Is that warehouse on Dulles or that's somewhere else?
No, to be honest, it used to be on Dulles. I'm not sure where it is for Dulles Airport now. And frankly, the way these contractors have worked it out, it may be far away from here. It could be in New Jersey. But
Well, that's like the odd lot companies, like Big Lots. I don't know if Big Lots does, but there are
I
the
can
odd
tell
lot.
you, I used to go to customs auctions and pick up neat stuff.
Yeah.
Automobiles are a big one, but usually the automobiles have to be exported. They were stopped because they don't qualify, they don't conform to U.S. regulations.
That's because there's things inside the doors.
That's
No,
Engine gas.
no, that was.
Is part of,
She's being trying to be funny.
Yeah, really.
is part of your presentation today going to show us around at all, or?
yeah, I'd like to. I don't know if-
Before we do that, can we do the,
Okay, yeah, there's
we have some abandoned, right, merchandise? You want to tell the story?
Sure. All right, so I had a client who decided that what the world wanted most was pink gin.
What?
Pink gin.
Oh, pink.
Yes. Oh, I heard about this. Yeah.
So he bought a whole bunch of pink gin.
You're opening it?
You're opening the
We're
pink gin?
opening it, we're all gonna have a sip. That's
Oh,
why
right.
you drink your water.
We're gonna drink out, we're gonna drink out of the bottle.
Pass the bottle.
So
I don't know that I.
Do it like in the Old West, that's what we're gonna.
What do you normally?
So let me ask
Pass
you a
the
question.
bottle
I'm just
around?
curious. Why would someone not pick up their product?
with the gin, it was, the guy picked it up and he stored it with me. Then he went bust, owing me a few $1,000s. And so the gin paid to mine.
That's
Huh?
your collateral.